Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Philip Baumann, CEO of BoomTech, where we specialize in helping small to medium-sized businesses with all their IT and security needs. Today, I'm going to share with you something that could literally save your law firm and your bank account. Okay. So the 7 critical IT security protections every law firm must have in place now to avoid cyber attacks, data breach lawsuits, bank fraud, and compliance penalties. So today we're going to share the #1 secret that your law firm, that antivirus, firewalls, and security protocols can't protect against. Shocking truth about bank fraud that most law firms don't know about that could literally wipe out their bank account. Why firewalls and antivirus software aren't enough anymore. And how mobile phones and cloud applications are seriously jeopardizing your organization's security and data protection, and what you need to do to protect yourself. So most of you are already using cloud computing and already have employees using mobile devices for work. It's a trend that's not gonna, show down anytime soon. However, most of you are adding them on in a slapdash haphazard way instead of being smart and strategic about it. And because of that, you're making an expensive mistake and exposing yourself to unnecessary risk. So ultimately, we're going to cover how you cannot be a sitting duck. As a free bonus for anybody who signed up, we will email that out to you, so you don't need to take crazy notes or screenshots or anything like that. So it's our detailed guide that lays out each of these steps and how to deploy them and implement them and why they're important. Success in the content of our discussion today is that you might not have been attacked yet, or if you were compromised, the consequences weren't significant. Therefore, because of your success in not being a target yet, you've become complacent about security measures in your organization. Let's say you stand in the middle of a highway, and because you have not yet been hit, you feel you're being successful. Does that mean you should continue to stand there? Of course not. So a quick overview of the sophistication of the cybercrime business, right? It's very sophisticated, well-funded, sometimes even state-funded, organized. And unlike other businesses, they don't have to follow the rules. The following slides will stress this, where web stores, you can buy full malware kits, and you can even buy, stolen credit cards. And they have a 1-800 number for malware kits in case you can't make it work. And they help you get it working. So a quick kind of evolution of crime, right? In the olden days, cybercrime business was pretty simple. You bought a gun or a knife, you hid out in a dark alley, and when someone would walk by, you jump out and say, "Stick 'em up," and take their money. Startup costs and overhead were low, and if you didn't get caught, you'd be okay. But of course, just like any business owner, criminals started thinking, how can I grow my business? Of course, technology answered that question. Trains came along, and instead of robbing one person at a time, you could rob 200 to 300 people at a time. And robbing trains was far more lucrative catch than robbing individuals, because these trains were crossing remote areas where there weren't organized police forces. Second, individuals who were wealthy enough to afford a train ticket were worth robbing, and they were rounded up sitting in a single convenient location. Today, thanks to advancement in technology and an ever-increasing trend of storing financial and personal information on third-party cloud platforms, and new train robbers are cybercriminal related. Think about it. If a criminal wanted to rob 100,000 people at once, they couldn't do it the old-fashioned way. Today, all is needed is a hack into a single large platform, and they can use advanced technology to instantly rob millions, and they are, as you can tell by the increasing number of attacks, very successful. So here you see the millions of customer accounts that are hacked. It's astonishing, and these are big organizations with huge defense and cybercrime budgets, right? So cybercrime is a thriving and growing business, not just a few guys in a garage hanging out. Anything you might need to steal, data, rob people can be purchased. You can now buy credit cards, social security numbers, even programs again to build those malware kits, and even a fake ATM. You might say, why would you want to buy a fake ATM? You put it at a fair, people put in their debit card, put in their PIN, and they just think it was out of money, and there they have everything they need from you. Well, you might be thinking, I'm just a small law firm. I'm not, a target like a bank or Equifax or Wawa, right? Nobody want to hack us. That's very wrong. First, those large companies have very sophisticated security systems in place. They're not easy to hack. Therefore, if they're getting hacked, getting into your business is a cakewalk, which is why you are a bigger target than these larger institutions. The price might not be as big, but you're far easier to rob than large institutions, making you a prime target. And since cybercriminals have automation tools, they can make a large sum of money simply targeting a few hundred or thousand small businesses. Key point, you just don't hear about these attacks because they don't make national news and the news wants to focus on the big stories. Second, most small businesses don't know they've been hacked or don't report it as they should because they are embarrassed or afraid of legal reputational consequences. But again, 1 in 5 small businesses will fall victim to cybercrime each and every year. So here, the $201 that reflects the average cost per stolen record. Right now, on top of that, you have reputational damage, loss of clients, class action lawsuit, legal fees, compliance lawsuits, and all these other things. Right? Just because you're a small business, that doesn't mean your customers' information is less valuable to them. It's an astonishing fact. There's 1 million new malware threats being released every day. Think about that. You can't just think a simple firewall and antivirus is enough these days with the sophistication of these attacks. Having a firewall and antivirus is like trying to stop a tank with a squirt gun. It's very important to take proactive approach with this. Bank fraud, right? So business bank accounts are not protected by the FDIC. It's not like your personal account. So the bank is not responsible for getting your money back if you report it after 24 hours. So that's a pretty big one there. Social media. Facebook has been putting better security in place over the last year, but it's still a huge problem. Now you might say, what good is my Facebook account to hackers? By getting access to your Facebook account, the hackers now have about 80% of the information he or she will need for identity theft. Open a loan, they will know your date of birth, where you work, where you live, your friends, your mother's maiden name, and all that good stuff. Second big thing with social media is the loss of productivity, right? So you want to make sure you have a solid internet culture content filter set up where your employees are not wasting time out there. Ransomware. This was the last big ransomware attack, and you can tell pretty much anybody in the world who had internet connectivity got slammed by this. And ransomware is something that encrypts all your files, so your PDF, PowerPoint, Word, on your computer as well as on your network. And then once it's done doing that, it goes ahead and pops up a screen and it asks for a ransom to give you your data back. This is normally done and paid via Bitcoin. And, because they're criminals, sometimes you pay them and they give you your data back. Sometimes you pay them, they don't give you your data back. And sometimes you pay them, they give you your data back, but they still sell it on the dark web. So it's super important that you have a plan in place in case something like this happens where you can recover and you don't have to pay them. Shadow IT is one that is not that well known. If your employees and business departments are bypassing internal IT resources to acquire their own systems, software or other technology without your explicit permission, then that is called shadow IT. This has grown out of pure necessity. Increasingly tech-savvy employees seek out their own solutions to specific business problems. So for example, they want to go ahead and work from home and they deploy a Dropbox account. With that Dropbox account, the employee, doesn't really mean to do anything bad. But now you have your client's data living on a Dropbox account. And let's say something happens to that employee, or they no longer work for you. It's very, very hard or nearly impossible to get that data back. Or in this scenario where, Dropbox got hacked and now your client's data is hacked and you have no control over that. So it's important to put a solution in place that you as the law firm owner has control over, and it can be managed by IT. Everybody's using mobile devices. That's just increased dramatically. And everybody has their email on there, so forth and so on. But how many of you have a password on your phone or a remove kill switch to wipe if it's lost or stolen? Something you want to have in place just in case. Spam is still one of the biggest entry points as far as cyber criminals. The phishing emails are still very common and very, very sophisticated. So making sure you have a good spam filter and educate your employees is mission critical in protecting your law firm. So what has the industry been doing, right? So everybody's kind of doing a firewall. You patch your applications and systems. You have hopefully antivirus and a spam filter in place. This is what we call Security 1.0. All of that stuff was in the protection phase. So what we really need to do, of course, we need to protect, but then we need to have a way to detect when a crime has happened or a breach. And then we need a response plan. So what do we do? Example, get hit with ransomware. How do we recover you? And how long will it take to be recovered? So how do you protect yourself? You're kind of, freaking me out here. So the number one threat to your business is you and your employees, right? You can have the best antivirus and the best firewall, but if you and your employees are not trained on what to do, or most importantly, what not to do, you're still very susceptible to cybercrime. So the first thing we do is employee cybersecurity awareness training. So we go ahead and we initially send phishing emails to all the employees so we get a baseline and see who did what and who would have been a victim and gotten hacked. Then everybody gets training assigned to them. After the initial training, we keep doing this because, again, security is not a problem to solve, but a risk to manage. So each month, we keep phishing. We call them the clickers, the guys who clicked again and would have gotten hacked again. They obviously get more training assigned to them. Next up, we align you to the CIS 20. So the Center of Internet Security came out with these 20 standard things every law firm and small business should have in place. And we align you to this to make sure you're a good steward of your client's data. Some of the things is like inventory, malware defense, patching, common things, but make sure you got everything covered. Next up, we do a data discovery. This is where you can find out, where is my unprotected data and who has access to it? How can attackers get to that data? And what does it cost in case that data gets breached? And then we can come with a plan on properly protecting that information. Next up, you need a next generation endpoint protection. And not to go too technical, the main difference between next generation is the behavioral-based detection. So if you think back to a million new malwares in the olden, Symantec and McAfee world, you got virus definition update each morning. And unless it didn't know about that virus, it couldn't detect it. So with a million new ones, that system is broken. So next generation behavioral based can figure out viruses before they are even known because they analyze the behavior of what's happening. And that's how it can protect against all this stuff out there. Next up, we gotta run external vulnerability scans to see from the outside in what ports are open, what's going on, do we need to close them, or is that okay? So we see what's happening. And then, of course, we gotta protect the bank account, right? So a couple of easy things to do. Cancel your debit cards. They're the #1 way banks, accounts get compromised. Second, sign up for email alerts for your bank whenever a withdrawal over $100 happens, or maybe you say 200, 500,000, but so you're aware. Require your signature and two-factor authentication for any wire transfers. A lot of wire fraud gets happening with the phishing attempts. And you also want to have a policy for your employees where they're not allowed to take wire changes unless they pick up the phone and ensure it happened from the other party. And then, have your money spread out in multiple accounts to minimize the risk so they can't empty the whole thing. And consider cyber liability insurance because banks are not required to cover these kind of losses. All right, so the bottom line, you need to get serious about protecting your company against cybercrime. But what does that look like, right? So our 7 recommendations: 1, the employee cybersecurity training; 2, implement the CIS controls; 3, perform that data discovery; 4, deploy the next generation endpoint; 5, external vulnerability; protect your bank account; and number 7, keep your network and all devices patched and up to date so you're closing those vulnerabilities before somebody can go in. There's 3 steps to protecting your law firm. The step 1 is you got to do a threat assessment. So this is where we go in and what's lacking right now. How are your employees using company-owned devices? What third-party cloud apps are you using? All that good stuff. What backup system? How long would it take? So we kind of get an idea of what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, and that's step 1 with the threat assessment. Step number 2 is an action plan of detailed, hey, here's all these potential liability and risks to your law firm. What plan and what do we need to do in what order and what priority to get these things solved and mitigate that risk? And then step number 3 is you got to have ongoing maintenance because the set it and forget it approach does not work with security. Attackers are constantly changing. I always say the day the firewall got deployed, it was secure. 2-3 weeks later, it's a different story. So it's an ongoing thing that you got to keep maintaining. You got to keep assessing and ensuring things have not changed. The good news is the first step is free. At no cost or obligation, we'll come to your law office and conduct a threat assessment where we'll go through an extensive questionnaire. This will give you a clear action plan and we'll cover your firewall, antivirus, acceptable use policy, and all that good stuff. So what to do now? Email us at sales@boomtechit.com. Put in the subject line, free security assessment. We'll take the first 3 on a first come, first basis for this free consultation. It's a heavy investment on time for us. It takes us about 10 hours from start to finish for the assessment. And of course, you can also call us at 561-350-80, extension 214, and ask to speak to Neil. 3 things you need to know. We can only assess 3 law firms, again, because of that. It takes a lot of time. There's absolutely no obligation to buy or do anything after the assessment. So if you have internal IT or you want to give it to somebody else, you can. This is by application only. I want to make sure I can actually help you before we book this consultation. All right, cool. So at this point, that's the end of the presentation. If there's any questions, we will take those now. And if not, we can hand it over to Jeff to do his part.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for my half of this. We're going to talk about 2 specific things in my portion of everything. And the first is we're going to talk about how to protect your law firm through the idea of accessible websites or ADA compliance for websites. So first of all, we'll kind of talk about what an accessible or ADA compliant website is, but we'll talk about why at first. 3% of the US population have visual impairment, 50% have a hearing impaired. More importantly than those statistics are the fact that senior citizens, okay, 65 and up, more than half identify as disabled, and most of them are online, about 3 out of every 4, okay? So that's why it is a good thing to include this stuff, all right? We want to recognize that baby boomers are online, they're disabled, but there is really good news attached to all this. I'll talk about it later. But the thing that everybody here needs to know from a protection perspective is that you want to avoid litigation under the ADA. Businesses are 100% being sued because their websites are not ADA accessible. They're not available for people who have these disabilities, and they are losing. We'll talk about that. But first, what is the ADA? We're talking to a lot of attorneys, the Americans with Disabilities Act. I'm sure all of you know what that is. We don't need to go through that. However, what you may not know is what the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act of 2010 is, signed into law by Obama. And it specifically talked about these types of things. It talked about the ideas behind the accessibility of modern telecommunications for people with disabilities. Therefore, the ADA kind of works with this as well for the purposes of online website accessibility. But what is the risk? Okay. Risk is historically businesses that did not have the ADA compliant buildings. They didn't have the ramps. They didn't have the width of doorways, those sorts of things. They were being sued and they were losing. And the way the statute's written, as the attorneys understand, is that there's no cause for remediation. Once you're sued, you are now liable for the opposing attorney's fees. That's the reality of it. But this is now applying to websites. Well, how does it apply to websites? Well, for people who are visually or hearing impaired, okay, they don't use the web and websites the same way that people who have no issues do, all right? So for a person who's blind, they use something called a screen reader to visit a website. There's a few of them that I listed, all right? So the website needs to be coded in a specific way so people who have these screen readers can still participate and use the web. Think about it. If you have an image and the image is relevant to what's going on, the person who's blind needs to understand that image. If you have an e-commerce website, what are you doing to be able to purchase that stuff? If you have a form or a contact form on your website, when you see one side where you see a person where you have name and then next to it, it has the field, well, a person who has sight understands that there's a connection between name and the field there. But if you're having a screen reader read that to you, you are not aware of that. So therefore, you need to code the site in such a way that you can accomplish that, all right? As such, there's a set of standards out there called the WCAG or the WCAG. Okay, they're up to compliance level 2.1 that goes through a series of standards that can kind of apply. There's actually 3 tiers under the WCAG. We're not going to get into that here today, but there's 3 standards. There's 3 tiers of that to get there. There's also a group out there called the WebAIM Initiative. Okay, it stands for Web Accessibility in Mind. And so it's another nonprofit organization that's geared towards getting websites to be accessible. But I talked about the fact that businesses are being sued. Here's a couple of specific cases. I'll talk about a few of them right now. But the reality is the first one we'll talk about is the Winn-Dixie case. Winn-Dixie case is basically that Winn-Dixie supermarkets were having a group of coupons on their websites, and their websites were not ADA accessible. So these coupons were not available anywhere. They were sued, and basically had the idea that it was discriminatory practices, that a person tried to get these coupons, couldn't get them, and that was considered discriminatory. They lost. It is currently in appeals. It's been in appeals for the last over a year, year and a half. We still don't know exactly what's going on with it, but they did lose. Doesn't matter, they had a huge amount of fees regardless, and that's gonna stick regardless. Domino's Pizza is another great example, okay? Domino's Pizza actually appealed it. They lost in appeals, and they appealed it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court denied hearing it. So basically, the Supreme Court agreed with whatever the prior appeals court said. And basically, a blind person couldn't use their app, all right? And Domino's, they were informed about it, and they refused to do anything about it. They basically, the defense was, we don't think our clients need it. It's kind of an arrogance argument. And the whole point behind the ADA is to protect people from such arguments, okay? It's happening, it's real. We get on average in my office between 4 and 5 referrals from business litigation firms where businesses have been sued. So what are the risks? Well, I don't know whether the lawsuits are legitimate or whether they're nuisances. All I know is that they're costly, okay? The attorneys on the call, they understand that your time is expensive, okay? So you have the settlement amount. Then you have attorney's fees on both sides. And then you still have to remediate the website. So the idea behind remediation, waiting to remediate, not waiting to make your website ADA compliant, is actually a flawed concept, in my opinion. So don't wait to get sued, take care of it now, all right? So there's 3 schools of thought about who is most at risk, all right? The first school of thought is that all websites are at risk, and that's actually what we've seen in our office. I've seen from small law firms to large entities with full brick and mortar, with full retail e-commerce stuff with brick and mortar locations. But there's 3 that they're the kind of the risk factors. 1, all websites. 2, retail websites have e-commerce on it. And then 3, an e-commerce website that have a brick and mortar location. That 3rd is the most at risk. So for your clients that are out there, those are the people you want to talk to and make sure that they're getting it compliant. But everybody is at risk, and we're seeing all of them in my office. How can you check to see if you are accessible, if you're ADA compliant? Well, first, go to the WAVE tool. WAVE is created, was an online, it's a free tool out there created by the WebAIM initiative, which I talked about earlier. And it's a really simple way of kind of determining whether you're accessible or not. Or ask me. I will send you, I'll do a report entirely for free to tell you what your risks are and how success and what is going on. Here's what actually the WAVE tool does. And you can see the image on the left. They have 6 errors. They have the contrast errors. Contrast errors are not as bad as the main errors. And then you can see on the right, that's actually a client of ours where the website has no errors, no contrast errors. The alerts are not something that we really concern ourselves with. And what can you do? Well, check to see if your website is ADA compliant, okay? Talk to your clients about this. It's still not very well known. Even in my industry, a lot of people have no idea what the stuff is. Talk to a web professional. If you don't want to talk to us, it's fine. Talk to somebody who understands this stuff, all right? But here's the really best part. There is an IRS credit to remediate your website, all right? So Section 44, Title 26 of the US Tax Code allows for up to a $5,000 tax credit. Here's how the credit works. It's a 50% tax credit after the first $250 up to a total of $5,000. It applies for businesses that have 30 or fewer employees, okay, or make $1 million or less in annual revenue. So the 30 and fewer employees is sort of the magic thing that we kind of talked about. So if your law firm or your client has 30 or fewer employees, we can remediate their website for basically half price. Or you can redesign your website as long as it's ADA compliant for basically half price. So it's a really great way of either getting a new website or protecting yourself from being sued as a result. So kind of to surmise and sum up the whole ADA and website accessibility is, it's a good thing, the risk is real, but the IRS will give you half to kind of do everything. All right. Now let's talk about growing your law firm. And we're going to talk about storytelling, specifically how to tell your story. But a question that you might have is storytelling relevant to a law firm? The answer is, I believe it is very much so. I think lawyers oftentimes are exceptional storytellers, especially ones that go to trial. You have depositions, mediations, court appearances. I've talked to a lot of attorneys about this. The person with the best facts in front of a jury or even a judge isn't the side that wins. It's the side that spins the best story. So when we talk about storytelling, we're talking about from a marketing perspective, it's finding that unique selling proposition. It's finding that USP that's going to make you different, better than your audience, than your competition, rather. And more than that, it's connecting with your audience. It's finding that thing that's going to make them emotionally and intellectually connected to you and your business. All right? So in my office, we have 3 rules of storytelling. Okay? 1, it's not about you. So if it's not about you, who is it about? It's about them. It's about your audience. 2, it is about pain, or more specifically, how you can solve their pain. And 3, start with why. We'll talk about those in a second, but I want to talk about the idea of communicating versus connecting. All right? Communicating is telling somebody what you do, how you do it, the cost, the services, the features, the benefits. All of those things are communicating concept. And realistically, that is not the way to sell or market yourself. It is not the best way of doing it. Saying what you do is not the best way of landing a sale. Connecting is the best way of marketing and landing that sale. All right? What's your passion? Why are you doing this? Finding shared like realities and things that you do. How is what we're going to do impact and help you and your business? Because remember, rule number 1 is it's not about you, the law firm. It's about the client. So one of the things that I like to talk to people about is you replace the words like I, me, and we, and use you, us together. So what this does is it changes the narrative into one of togetherness. It tells the audience that it's you. Because when you think about the very best stories that you've ever had, the movies, the books that you've really connected with, it's because you see yourself in the story, in one of the characters. You can kind of relate in some capacity to accomplish that. So when you're telling your story, remember, it's not about you, it's about your audience. Rule number 2, pain solver. Be a pain solver. Remember, it's not about you, it's about your audience. But specifically, your audience is coming to you, especially as a law firm, because they're in pain. Nobody calls a lawyer because everything went right. You don't call the business litigation attorney when things are going fantastic, usually. You're calling them because you're being sued. There's a problem. Someone's not paying you, whatever that is. You call a family law attorney, not because things are going great with your marriage. You're calling a family law attorney because things are going wrong with your marriage. How are you going to fix what I'm going through? So ultimately, the people who can solve pain are the ones who are going to get the sale. And finally, start with why. Start with why is a concept that was developed by Simon Sinek, and I'll get into the nuance of that in a little bit. But I want to ask you why you got into law. What are you passionate about in your day-to-day? How are you communicating that passion? People connect with people that inspire them. Remember, people do business with people you know, like, and trust. One of the best ways of getting there is through passion. So let's get more specifics. All right, this is a client. I'm going to use 3 personal injury attorneys as examples. Okay, and we're going to get into the details of that. But if you look at the counsel for justice, again, how we're striving to help you. All right, but let's get to, like, this is an about us page, and we're going to kind of look at the detail here. If you kind of, we highlighted some of these kind of words here. We handled so you can focus on health and hearing. We want to be more than just your lawyer. We want to be your trusted advisor, your friend. We want to earn your trust and mutual. We will communicate with you. Notice we keep talking about you. The audience sees themselves in that story, and that's a really positive thing. Here's another personal injury term. I'm going to just read it straight up. For you, this is everything. You were wronged, and it wasn't your fault. We know this. We know that every case we handle represents your life. You are angry and maybe a little bit scared. It's our responsibility to protect you. It's our job to make sure that you get the justice that you deserve. And we talk more about putting them into the audience. We work every single case as if it were our only case. We treat every client as if they were a son or daughter. We talk about you. We want to put you into the audience. Another personal injury firm. Every case we win represents somebody's life. Every victory is a victory for someone who's been wronged, often severely. Every settlement provides the means for a family to put their lives back together. Everything we do is to help the little guy. The narrative is about the audience, about how we're solving pain. That's the whole point about telling your story. So when I said start with why, it was developed by Simon Sinek. And basically the concept behind it is that people buy why you do something, not what you do. And so the whole idea is that every single narrative has a why, a how, and a what. And most businesses, most salespeople are a what first company. We're a marketing firm. We're a business litigation firm. We're an IT firm. They say what they do, not why they do it. So I like the idea of being a why first firm. What is your why? Start with why, and then you have the how and the what to kind of combine to that. Give a couple examples. So when Apple came out with their original iPod, they were a software company, right? So it was a little bit weird that they came out with a music player. But no one thought it was weird because Apple's why was think different. So when a software company, or a computer company rather, came out with a music player, it wasn't weird because they were a think different company. But Microsoft at the exact same time came out with their Zoom, and nobody bought it. Because Microsoft had always branded themselves as, we're a software company. We do Office, we do Windows, that's what we do. So when they came out with theirs, which was every bit as good as the iPod, people didn't buy it. Gateway computers at the time had the very best flat screen monitors on the planet, well known for it. So they started selling TVs, flat screen TVs. Makes total sense. And nobody bought them because they were a computer company. People thought it was weird to buy a TV from a computer company. Therefore, it didn't work. When you are a why first company, when you're Disney, Disney's why statement is deliver happiness. That's what they do. So they don't say that we're a theme park company. They don't say that we're a TV company. They deliver happiness. Mondelez is a food company. Make every day delicious. These are the why statements that these companies have adopted. So what's your why statement going to be? Well, I'll talk about Flying Chip's why statement. I think it's relevant. Is to drive your success through creativity and passion. Well, how we do that is through great storytelling, getting people to hear that story. What we do? Websites, SEO, marketing, advertising, videos. That's the stuff we do. But we lead with why. So when I meet people out there, when I'm at networking events, when a person asks me what I do, I either say that we drive success through creativity and passion, or I tell them I'm a storyteller. I get them to ask the next question that I can then talk about what it is we do. And at the end of the day, when we're talking about storytelling, remember this amazing quote from Teddy Roosevelt. Nobody cares what you know until they know you care. It goes back to your story, it goes back to your story, to your message, and to your passion. So what's your story? Any questions? Now I'm back. So do we have any questions? I can open up the QA so I can see that. No questions. If people have the little questions, you can hit the little button down below that says QA. You can type in a question for either Phil or myself.
Cool.
So John asked the question, can you help me tell my story? The answer is yes. That's what we do. We help people tell their stories, because oftentimes we look for that creative. We find that magic sauce that's going to make them special, and everybody's different. And so we do something called the Big Think session, and we will kind of work with you to get you to actually tell us what your why is, because your story comes from you. So we have to kind of find it from you. Any other questions? Question, what role is video playing in today's legal marketing landscape? So video has a major role in today's landscape. One of the things that we're working with a lot of our clients on is content videos, creating just kind of question and answer videos, FAQ type of stuff. We don't advocate as much on that classic sort of, minute or two-minute entry to where you see, them walking slowly into the courthouse with the very, ominous music playing in the background. It's rather about sharing information. Establish yourself as a subject matter expert, like an SEM, because what it does is it creates a relationship with the audience to go kind of further. So one of the things that we do with these FAQ videos, we also include transcripts. So it's great for search engine optimization, and it makes it ADA compliant. So those videos actually would be even eligible for that $5,000 ADA credit that we talked about earlier. Any other questions? Question, are those type of videos bar compliant, and are other firms going to file complaints against me? They are, because as long as you're not saying that you can get results. So there's a couple of marketing rules as it pertains to law firms. We're very familiar with all of them. The biggest is that you can't claim that you're better than other attorneys, and you can't guarantee a result. So as a result, as long as you're not doing that, you're just educating, you're sharing what's going on, they're absolutely bar compliant. Any other questions? No, are there any other questions for Phil, or?
I think this is a wrap.
Oh, wait. Wait, see, there's one other. Hang on. I see there was one other question that got disappeared. What happened? Can my current website here open? Can my current website be brought to ADA, or does it need to be replaced? It can be brought up. Your current website can absolutely be remediated. That would qualify under the tax credit. But yes, we can take any website and remediate that. We do not need a brand new website. We can go through. In fact, it's a pretty quick and seamless and very painless process to remediate the existing website. So,
cool. All right. So we want to thank everybody to spend this time with us on learning how to protect and grow your law firm. Jeff, pleasure.
Pleasure as always, sir.
All right, man.
All right, bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Make it a good one.